Hi folks, this is Mr. MegaManFan. Like, share, comment, subscribe, you know all the things to do. Today we're going to be talking about WrestleQuest from Mega Cat Studios. You've seen several of their games before on this channel, and like those other games, this was a demo provided courtesy of the studio for the purpose of review, embargoed until today, so I've been waiting to show you this for a little while now, but I think you're going to enjoy what's coming next, and I'm going to explain a little bit about the game as we look at some of the B-roll footage they provided before I go to my own footage from the game and talk about my own personal experience with WrestleQuest. Now, if you've played pro wrestling video games in the past, most of them have a very familiar setup. You grapple with your opponent, you select from a variety of moves you can do to your opponent, you do those moves, and then your opponent does those back to you, whether they're controlled by AI or a human opponent you happen to be playing against. For better or for worse, they treat what's going on inside the wrestling ring as though it were real. You're not kayfabing it, you're actually competing in physical combat like it was a mixed martial arts fight. And of course, that comes with the limitation of there being stats, whether they're the stats of the wrestler you created yourself or the wrestler you're playing as. Whether those stats are good, bad, or awful determines how long you're going to last in a real fight and whether or not you can execute your moves in that fight, your special signature moves that give you a better chance of winning. And sometimes you have to build up your move meter before you get to do those moves, and if your stamina stat is really low, you're never going to get that chance at all, and you're going to be easily defeated. Then you have to do a whole bunch of side quests where you train up your stats, and you have to work your way through the lower levels until you get to the higher ranked opponents at the upper levels, so on and so forth. We've all played wrestling video games. I assume if you're watching this, you've played more than one. I've played plenty in my day, so we all know the score. But what if there was a different, new way to look at things? Instead of treating it like a real fight, treat it like a turn-based combat in an RPG where you select from a list of moves and your opponent presumably also has a list of moves, whether you can see them or not, and you select a move and it does a certain amount of damage. Stats are still involved, but you're not controlling the character's every move in the ring, you're just controlling the actions that they do. There may be some advantages to that system. For example, if you want to be able to successfully execute a move, it's more like Paper Mario, where you hit the button at the right time and you get a bonus for timing the button press to do that move, as opposed to your stamina meter may be low enough that you don't get to execute the move, or your stats are so low that you can't do the move unless you train up. And what traditionally happens is you play a role-playing game. You gain experience points, you level up, and you gain new abilities. Pro wrestling can take that formula and use it the same way. If you level up, you can get new wrestling moves you can do. You can get new taunts you can do to your opponent. You can get new additions that you can add to your character that will enable you to make greater impact in the ring. You can even customize your outfit just like you would in an RPG. You got a shield, you got a sword, you got whatever you've got on your character equipped. You can do that in this game too. And they'll give you stat bonuses just like an RPG would. So, I really like this concept. I like the way that Mega Cat Studios and Skybound have put this together in what is now a turn-based pro wrestling game. So, kudos to them for this concept. Now, how does it work in execution? That's where we get to my own personal footage of WrestleQuest. This is where we need to add a few disclaimers, such as the fact that I was given a code that was meant for PCs, but they said it would also work on Steam Deck. And they said there might be some bugs in the process of that, whether or not the Steam compatibility Proton layer was effective in playing the game. And right away I did notice some issues, but that may be because I hadn't updated the game with the latest version the first time I played. What I was getting was what seemed like long delays where nothing was happening, but really what was happening was I wasn't seeing all of the graphics on the screen when they were supposed to be shown. Like right now there should be a map of the WrestleQuest world that you explore, and we're not seeing any of that in the background. we're only seeing the dialogue options. So I had to stop the game and update everything. I updated the game itself. I updated the Proton compatibility layer. I updated my Steam Deck. I went through all the motions to get everything working the way that it was supposed to. And once I did, WrestleQuest worked just fine. So none of this early footage with a largely black screen is representative of the game in its current state. Let's switch to the new footage that I filmed. My recommendation for Steam Deck users is that if you were having any issues with the game beforehand, do everything I did, update all of the things, and then select Proton Experimental as I just did here, and that will resolve your issues. Now, at last, we're getting the world map like we're supposed to, showing you all the areas that you will explore. Obviously, some are gated off at the beginning until you make progression through the various things that the game wants you to do. And because I don't want to put any spoilers in this review, there's going to be limited footage up to a certain point, and beyond that, you will not be seeing it today. You'll have to play the game yourself, which is something I'm going to encourage you to do because for me at least, this was a lot of fun. Now, what controller you do this with, depending on your console, is up to you. I'm using a Google Stadia controller with my Steam Deck, one that has obviously been converted to no longer be used with Stadia. It's just functioning as a Bluetooth wireless controller now. But you may be playing this on Xbox Series X or Nintendo Switch or PlayStation 5. I don't know. Use whatever controller you want. Your button mapping is going to be similar no matter what you do, whether it's square, circle, triangle, X, or ABXY. It doesn't matter. You'll have a button for each of your options, your strikes, your taunts, your signature moves, and the game has a tutorial mode right from the beginning that explains which button is which no matter what controller or what console you're on. It's very helpful to beginners in that way. They're not throwing you into the deep end saying, you figure it out. In fact, I think the assumption here would be there may never be a physical version of this game that comes with a box and manual. Now, that would be really cool if there was, but they have to provide this information to you in-game with the idea that there's either no physical manual to read or you didn't bother to read it if there was one, so they've got to hold you by the hand, which is fine. Accessibility is a great thing to have in video games. If it annoys you, you can skip past it as fast as possible. Your protagonist in the game is named Randy Santos, an obvious homage to Macho Man Randy Savage, may he rest in peace, but it's not just an homage. Macho Man is in the game. There's literally a statue of him standing on top of a pile of coffee creamer because he is the cream of the crop. Yeah! So, you're going to idolize him as Randy Santos just because you think he's the greatest wrestler who ever lived and you live in a world where he literally is. And as you try to idolize your hero, you're training your way up through this amateur wrestling circuit. You're learning these moves that you have to do to your opponents. You're talking to the different people in this world, and you're sent on fetch quests to get things for various people that will give you this game universe's equivalent of random enemy encounters. Instead of running into lizards and lions and dragons and tigers, oh my, you'll run into evil wrestlers who taunt you and make you face them to get the things that you need to get on your fetch quests. And of course, by defeating them, you'll gain experience points and level up. I mean, it's a simple formula. It's a role-playing game, right? But it just works so well in this regard. Maybe this is going to cause a disconnect for some people. I can understand that. Maybe you just want a No Mercy 64 or a AEW Fight Forever style game where you understand the combat, you grapple, you do the moves, you create a character, you train that character, fine, whatever. Maybe role-playing games aren't your forte. However, if you're somebody who loves professional wrestling and you love role-playing games, this is like the marriage of the two that you've always wanted and never even knew you wanted, which is the really unique part about this. Not to mention the fact that They got actual wrestling personalities to contribute their likenesses and their voices to this game. The likes of Jeff Jarrett, Jake the Snake Roberts, Diamond Dallas Page, they're all featured in this game. And from what I've seen, there are also certain wrestling personalities from the world covering professional wrestling that are in this game too. And I'm not going to give you spoilers about that either, but those names won't be hard to find. If you've played the game or you've read reviews on other websites, you'll know who those people are. And speaking of spoilers, I'm not going to show you all of my gameplay footage uncut. I'm skipping ahead a little bit to one of those aforementioned fetch quests. This is one where you have to get face paint for an aspiring wrestler who doesn't know what he wants his character to be. And if you hadn't already noticed, one of the conceits of this game is that the wrestlers are action figures, which is why they have interchangeable parts and costumes, but it's also why you get interesting dialogue like, "We're going to melt him down and use him as paint." So at times you're breaking the fourth wall here. Some of these characters know their toys, some of them don't. Some of them think wrestling is real, and some of them don't. It's a very interesting juxtaposition of styles. And maybe some people won't like that. Maybe some people don't like Deadpool either. I don't know. That's not for me to say what you do or don't like. I know that I like it and I enjoyed playing WrestleQuest. Now, to give my summary of the game, you could appreciate this one even if you were never a fan of professional wrestling to begin with. If you just like role-playing games, WrestleQuest is a fun role-playing game. If, however, you're somebody who's really into professional wrestling like I am, this is a role-playing game that takes the thing you love and makes it something that you never knew it could be, which is fantastic. And it may be a small niche to find people who really love role-playing games and really love professional wrestling, but if that small niche is big enough, MegaCat Studios is going to make a huge ton of bank. They're going to take this one all the way to the top, as Macho Man himself might say. So, I recommend WrestleQuest. Is it going to be for every single person out there? No, but I think if you give it a chance, it might just be for you, because it's a really fun concept. And hopefully, you'll get a chance to try it now that the embargo has been lifted and it's available on all platforms: PS5, Xbox Series X, Nintendo Switch. Get it wherever video games are sold to you. And of course, Steam Deck, which is what I'm playing it on here. So, Windows PC, Xbox, kind of the same thing. And then you can play it on Steam Deck if you have a Steam console that you want to use it on. I'm Mr. MegaManFan, and I want to thank MegaCat Studios and their publicist for giving me this review copy of WrestleQuest to play. It's been a blast. I've had so much fun playing this game that hopefully I can get some nice streaming set up where I can play this game live over the internet now that the embargo has been lifted. That's something I'm going to look into, but in the meantime, I'll see you next time.